Today for this tutorial, you'll learn how to express the addition and subtraction of sine and cosine function into a single sine function or a single cosine function. For a more than 0 and b more than 0, the function a sine theta plus b cosine theta can be expressed into the form r sine theta plus alpha. The value of r will be equal to a squared plus b squared square root, taking the positive value. Tangent alpha will be equal to the value b over a, and alpha can be found by using tangent inverse the value of b over a. The question you see here, right, wants me to express 3 sine theta plus 2 cosine theta into a single trigonometric function. 3 sine theta plus 2 cosine theta, therefore we will have to express it into the form r sine theta plus alpha. You can note that, right, since it's sine theta plus cosine theta, the form of the r formula, right, will be of the form r sine theta plus alpha. To express into the form r sine theta plus alpha, therefore we have to find the value of r as well as alpha by using the following formulas. The value of r can be found using a squared plus b squared square root, and we can calculate it using 3 squared plus 2 squared square root, which will give you the value of square root 13. Tangent alpha will be the value b over a, which will be the value 2 over 3. Alpha is therefore the value tangent inverse 2/3, which is 33.7 degree to 3 significant figure. 3 sine theta plus 2 cosine theta therefore can now be written as square root 13 sine theta plus 33.7 degree, which is a single trigonometric function. Now, if the formula, right, instead of a sine theta plus b cosine theta, now I change it to a sine theta minus b cosine theta. The formula, right, is changed slightly. The r formula will be of the form r sine theta minus alpha. Notice, right, when you have sine theta minus cosine theta, the r formula will be the form r sine theta minus alpha. The sign will be the same. Notice the difference between this and the previous formula. But please note that the r as well as the alpha, right, the calculation is still the same. R is still found using a squared plus b squared square root, taking only the positive value, and alpha will still be tangent inverse b over a. Okay, the question you see now, right, is I want to express 2 sine theta minus 4 cosine theta as a single trigonometric function. Notice now, right, instead of a plus, right, now it's a minus. The sine is in front, the cosine is behind. Now you can note that to express 2 sine theta minus 4 cosine theta, right, we can now express it into the form r sine theta minus alpha. The only difference with the previous question is that the sign, right, okay, from plus, right, minus here will still be minus here, instead of the previous one, which is plus here and then plus here. The r, right, will still be using a squared plus b squared square root, which will be 2 squared plus 4 squared square root, which will give the value of square root 20. Tangent alpha, right, will still be b over a, which will be the value 4 over 2. Alpha will therefore be tangent inverse 4 over 2, which will be tangent inverse 2, which will give you the value of 63.4 degree to 3SF again. 2 sine theta minus 4 cosine theta can now be expressed in the form square root 20 sine theta minus 63.4 degree, which is a single trigonometric function that the question wants you to express as. Now let's recap what we have learned so far. We have learned these two formula, a sine theta plus b cosine theta. We can express it in the form r sine theta plus alpha. Okay, the other one will be a sine theta minus b cosine theta. We can express it into the form r sine theta minus alpha. Note that these two formula, right, you had a sine in front and then a cosine behind. Okay, sine in front, cosine behind. Now if it's plus here, you'll be plus here. If it's minus here, you'll be minus here. Now we see the third formula being introduced to you now. For the same thing, a more than 0 and b more than 0. Let's say we have the expression a cosine theta minus b sine theta. If I want to express it into a single trigonometric function, I can express it into the form r cosine theta plus alpha. Notice that when I have cosine in front, okay, the R formula will be cosine. But the difference, right, is that the negative sign that is connecting the two trigo expression now will replace by a plus when you write it into the R formula. Now the R for this formula, R cosine theta plus alpha, the R value will still be the same using a squared plus b squared square root. The alpha will still be the same, will be still tangent inverse b over a. Now the third question want me to express 2 cosine theta plus 3 sine theta as a single trigonometric function. Now notice that the cosine is in front, the sine is behind, there's a plus in the middle. So how should we express it as? Okay, 2 cosine theta plus 3 sine theta therefore can be expressed in the form r cosine theta minus alpha. Notice the plus here, right? And now there's a minus here. Okay, cosine in front, now it will be cosine here. After this, right, we will also calculate the r as well as the alpha as per normal. Now notice that the r as well as the alpha will be calculated using the same formula. R will still be a squared plus b squared square root. Notice the a is 2, the b is 3, and alpha will be tangent inverse b over a, which will give you the value of 56.3 degree to 3SF. Now the expression 2 cosine theta plus 3 sine theta now is written into the form square root 13 cosine theta minus 56.3 degree. Now notice, right, the cosine in front, then the R formula will be cosine. If there's a plus sign here, it will be a negative sign inside the R formula. Now for the last formula for a more than 0, b more than 0, right, a cosine theta minus b sine theta, right, will be written into the expression r cosine theta plus alpha. Notice cosine in front, the R formula will be cosine, and if there's a negative here, the R formula there will be a positive. Okay, the R, the calculation will still be a squared plus b squared square root. The alpha will still be tangent inverse b over a. Now for the fourth question, you notice, right, I have cosine theta minus 3 sine theta. You want to express as a single trigo function again. Now notice the a in this case, right, the coefficient of cosine theta will be 1 and b will be 3. Cosine theta minus 3 sine theta therefore can be written in the form r cosine theta plus alpha. Notice cosine in front, the R formula will be cosine in front. Now there's a negative here, now will be a positive. There's a difference in the sign when there's a cosine in front. The R and the alpha will be calculated as per normal. R will still be a squared plus b squared square root. Notice, right, the a in this case is 1. You have the value of square root 10 for R, and alpha will be tangent inverse b over a, which will be the value tangent inverse 3, which will give me 71.6 to 3SF. Cosine theta minus 3 sine theta can therefore be written in the form square root 10 cosine theta plus 71.6 degree. Okay, just to remind you, when you have cosine in front, right, when you write into the R formula, it will be cosine. If the sign is negative, when written into the R formula, it will be positive. Now today we have learned 4 formulas, right, that convert the addition and subtraction of sine and cosine function to a single sine or a single cosine function. You can see that in the formulas, right, when there's a sign in front, the R formula will be the form R sine in front, and when there's an addition, it will be an addition. When there's a subtraction, it will be a subtraction. Now in the formulas where the cosine is in front, right, the R formula will be the form R cosine, but notice that the sign will be the opposite. If it's plus in front, you'll be minus behind. If it's minus in front, you'll be plus behind. Do note, for all the formulas, right, the R is still calculated using a squared plus b squared square root, taking the positive value, and alpha will still be tangent inverse b over a.